Okay, this is literally a chunk of the body of a creature. Now, this is your dimensions up here. It's not huge and it's not small. Now, what you got here is skin. This is the top of skin, and that is literally sand. It's different, totally different than the other stuff. Now, below that is that layer of red, which is the blood, and then you get into the muscle tissue, and that right there is where it glues in. You see this? This is the glue, and you get into the tendon. So up here is the muscle, and if you look around the front, you can see where it's all been fractured off, those muscle fibers. Pretty obvious. Now, if you look around the back, you have the same thing on the tendon. You see this here? Hold on, I'm going to turn this upside down so you can see it better. And you'll also be able to see the blood. It's totally saturated with blood underneath, from the skin down through the areolar tissue, through the muscle, down to a layer of blood. And here is that layer of blood. Alright, that's the layer of blood right there. That whole thing, this is a whole scab of blood. I'm not kidding you. And right below that is where the muscle fibers broke off. I mean, the tendon broke off. You see, it's, you know, if you look at it, you can't miss it. It's just, you just can't miss it. But you have to be able to think enough to look. And then I could put some water on here, but I'd have to soak it because this thing is just dry as a bone. But you can see here, hopefully you'll be able to see that color red. Maybe you can, I don't know. You see that? I mean, it has spots that you can see the red quite well, but if it was rehydrated, it would be a whole different story. Now, we're going to take a quick look at where the abrupt transition occurs and the difference between the tendon fibers and the muscle fibers, and then where the glue attaches to them. Alright, this is a post I did, I think it was yesterday, and this is this exact same as this banded iron. And this was about Dan Franco's found this absolutely amazing, these Sphinx in the United States. And he said there's like a zillion of these things out there. He says there might be 100 of these or more. Now, this is the banded iron, and this is the same thing that this lady sent me yesterday. And I was sending it to Dan to mention to him that this was the abrupt transition. I tell him Tyson and trying to get everybody to understand. These are the abrupt transitions. And as I probably have already shown or will, this area right here is the banded iron. But this one has eroded away. The red bloody part runs out, and the tendinous material stays, and you can see it quite well in the banded iron. And this is where the muscle came off, and that's the gluey part. And I'm showing this very well in my stuff, and it was just, I was just about to do the video on this banded iron, and she sent me that. It happens every day, every single day. It's absolutely phenomenal. You know, the things that I come across my desktop here. Now, so that is the banded iron right there. And it's just, I mean, what can I say? It's just so obvious. It's the same thing as this right here. It's the same one. There's no difference whatsoever. Except mine's not quite as bright as that. It's been sitting there for years. Now, if I soak this, it might get almost exactly like that. And as you saw or will see, it's sandstone at the top, which is, that's your skin. Your skin is sand. It's extremely abrasive to the rest of the world. It's not like your insides. You get down in here, you have the blood, then you have your muscle, then you have your deep layer, and then you have your final bloody layer at the bottom, solid blood down there. So that's what we got, and that is banded iron. Now, it's not what they're touting over at Yale. They came up with some big long fantasy of how this occurs. Well, I can tell you how it occurs. Giant creatures died in a flood that was in books written everywhere in the world. Not just the Bible, not just, it's everywhere. So don't just come across, oh, you must be a religious person. Well, that has nothing to do with it. It has absolutely nothing to do with it. So unless you want to just fantasize and make things up, well, good for you. But, you know, I think it's time to start looking at what is actually happening. Because it's now, you know, it's undeniable at this point. DNA and all the different stories. But you can always come up with some fantasy if you want to just start, you know, coming up with, just like it says, concocting tales. Alright, you've been around long enough, you know that I talk about CaCO3 as limestone, calcium carbonates. That is what your tendons primarily are made of. Now, as you go away from your tendons down to your skin, you get into the mud. That's your mud, is your fleshy tissues. And then in between you have your organs, they call it marlstone. So you go from the mud and the mudstone, and there's sand outside of that, because sand has eroded. That was the real skin, is the sand. I'll show you that in a second. But the sand has eroded. Then you get down to the red mud, which is clay. And then you go all the way down into your limestone, which is your tendinous material. So let's look at a spectral analysis. Alright, so what do you see here? You see sandstone, mudstone, and limestone. And what do they consist of? Well, sandstone is mostly Si. See silicon, the red one here? You don't see that in the mudstone. You don't see it in the limestone. Sand erodes from the skin. That's why you have sand everywhere from the giants. That is what sand is. I'm sorry, you have to get over it. Now, then you go down into your mudstone where you don't have that sand anymore, and you're into the red clay stuff, you know, your ferrous oxides and bloody stuff. And then you get into the limestone where you have the components of limestone, the CaCO3s, calcium carbonates, and so forth. So that is the way. This is the only one that is sedimentary. That's because it eroded from the sand of your skin and the silicon dioxide. And I made this stuff myself. So, and I showed this stuff in the that giant slab of meat, really. This is literally a chunk of mud fossil meat that has been sectioned out, and it all the way from the skin, which is the sand, all the way down through the red bloody tissue layers in here that are the actual fleshy layers. Now I showed this. This is a strap of muscle. Underneath, whoops, is solid red blood. That is a solid pad of red blood. And it's not thin, it's fairly thick. That's just solid blood. Now, I show this in a microscope and everything. It's no question what it is. Sand starts here, then you get into your mudstone, and then you get into your real fine blood. Now, here's the chemistry behind this. What are we looking at here? These are the different types of minerals. Right? These are the percentages that they represent of plastic clay. What is plastic clay? Plastic clay is the stuff that's underneath your skin. It's not the skin itself. It's below the skin. And that is what lets you gush around and everything. Now, kaolin, everybody knows, they call it kaolin, kaolin. I call it kaolin. And what it does is it's the very, very fine skin that's on your face and so forth, just below the skin, but it's almost the skin and just below on your face. That's what they make the fine china out of. There's no heavy duty grains in it. Now, then you get regular feldspar, which is it's a sandy, gritty sort of stuff. Then you get in talc, it's a whole different thing. Then you get in quartz. Quartz is sand. Quartz is silicon dioxide, Si, silicon dioxide, O2. Now, it's a sand. It's a sand on the beach. So what does that mean? It is the stuff that eroded. Silicon. I showed you this in the spectral analysis of the minerals. It's the sedimentary layer of silicon that eroded from the giant skin. That's what it is. And it was from the Great Flood. And that's why this particular layer around the world is a layer of clay. And they call it kaolinite. Kaolinite, however you want to pronounce it. And it is the layer that they had called the KT boundary. It contains iridium, absolutely, because you do too. Hold on, where's my little... Here it is. Every one of those is in you. Every single one. You know, they pick out a couple of iron and this and that and the zinc and they think that's it. No, absolutely not. You have uranium in you. You have every one of these transition metals in. No question whatsoever. And if you don't, you're sick. That is what the environment consists of. Your body harvests those through enzymes, which are created by bacteria. It's a process. You're a chemistry set. You're a chemical factory. And this is the end result right here. All right, and this is from long ago. And that they would call banded iron. They call them layered intrusions. It is creatures' bodies.